Hi class, happy President's Day. Today I'm going to be talking about a book, SEO Trot by Roald Dahl. This is a children's fiction book and it has pictures on every page, I think almost every page, but it also has more text than your typical picture book. It's recommended for children age 6 to 10. This is a story about Mr. Hoppy, and he is in love with his downstairs neighbor, Mrs. Silver, but she is in love with her turtle, and she really loves her turtle. But she's disappointed that her turtle isn't growing as fast as she would like, and she tells Mr. Hopper, and he says, I have a spell for you. And basically the spell is tortoise, grow bigger, eat a lot, and this, but it's backwards. So SEO Trot is tortoise backwards. So she says she's going to do this, and Mr. Hoppy runs all over town to every pet store and buys all the turtles that look like Alfie. And every week he puts a slightly larger turtle down on her balcony, so she thinks that he is growing. And she's so appreciative. She is so happy and expresses her happiness in such a nice way that he immediately feels like he can love her and ask her to marry him, and she says yes, and they live happily ever after. So this book, as I read this book, I felt like their marriage was based on this lie, and Mr. Hoppy, even though he looks like a nice, happy man, was very deceitful to her, and so I didn't really like the book, and I'm not going to read it to my grandchildren or recommend it to anybody. So in a way, I am censoring this book. And so I thought we should look at the questions we were asked that we should think of when we're reading controversial literature. And the first question is, what does it mean to censor? And so there's a lot of different ways we can censor a book. And as I thought about this book, I felt like Mr. Hoppy was deceitful throughout the book. So I didn't think you could like scratch out a word here and there and make it okay. Maybe you could ban this book, or perhaps you could put it into the adult section of the library so that children wouldn't accidentally come across it. That's one way that you could censor it. The second question is, what, if anything, should be censored? Is it your decision or your responsibility to censor others? And personally, I don't think that we have the right to censor what other people read. You may have loved this book. You may have been so happy that Mr. Hoppy and Mrs. Silver, two lonely people, got together and they had a good life together. You may even like this book as a way to teach your children. You know, maybe you could ask them and say, did it seem like Mr. Hoppy did anything good, or what could you do differently if you were him? And so you may have a totally different feeling about this book than I do, and I don't feel like I have that right to tell you to read it, just like you don't have the right to tell me not to read it. So, number 3, when, if ever, should something be censored? And I think that there's certain types of censorship, like movie ratings. I appreciate those. I'm glad that somebody watches them and tells me when there's something in there that could be considered objectionable by me and tell me what it is. I think the same could be done for books. I often read reviews and see, especially with adult fiction, I find that sometimes those books have stuff in them that I'd rather not read. So I often look at reviews and I censor them that way. Number 4, who, if anyone, should censor? And I think that parents will probably censor our reading, and libraries, they can't buy every book out there, so in some ways they also censor what's brought into the library, and this happens. But I think it's kind of a slippery slope when you give someone or some organization the power to tell you what you can and cannot read. I would imagine that many people would like to ban the Bible or our Book of Mormon, and it's just that's too restrictive, and we shouldn't give people that power. Number 5, who would you let censor you? And as I mentioned with the ratings and stuff, I do take people's advice, especially people I respect and look up to, but I would not let anybody censor the books that I read. Thank you. Have a great day.